Hello fellow beast, welcome to a VhrcHM hard mode breakdown. This video is to help explain mechanics for the last boss, the warrior. This will mainly talk about what a tank should do, but I will also touch base on what DPS and healers should do, which will be included in group positioning. As a disclaimer, we understand that each group may have their own preferences as far as completing content. The methods that Beast Nation uses help teach the core mechanics to members that may or may not already have the required experience and help progress themselves into further in-game content. Just to explain the main mechanic, throughout the encounter with the warrior, we will be dealing with a mechanic known as fossilize. This will encase a player in stone, completely stunning them, and will pop up a synergy that says Destructive Outbreak. By hitting this synergy, it will free the person from encasement, but will instantly kill anyone in the proximity. Do not use the synergy. Best advice that can be given to operate around this mechanic is to read on screen what the synergy is about to be used. Although accidents can happen, for example, by starting to use a safe synergy, but also getting fossilized at the same time, which can cause hitting the outbreak synergy without realizing it. Besides just reading the screen for a cue of the mechanic, the warrior can be seen turning to the group that casts fossilize and a rock crushing sound can be heard. If this sound is heard but you are still able to move around, and synergies are safe momentarily. Most of the time, the warrior's shield throw will break anyone while fossilized except the main tank. They will count down from 3 and proc the synergy because they need to be free to hold aggro on the warrior. While the tank is counting down, it is advised that the group should back up far enough not to be killed by the blast. Then after the tank is free, the group should move immediately back into position. So let's begin with the starting position. When breaking the gargoyle pairs, any pair can technically be chosen first, but we always start with a pair of gargoyles directly in the back of the room, furthest away from the entrance door for the positioning pattern that we use. Healers, DPS, and the off tank will stand in between the gargoyles while the main tank will position themselves on the outside of the right gargoyle if looking from the entrance side. Keep in mind that while the warrior is in movement to the tank's position, he will encase and stun a random player in stone with fossilize. When the main tank starts the first pull, they will position the warrior so that the tank is in between the gargoyle and the warrior, with the warrior facing the group. This can be considered as dangerous because the warrior can do a cleave attack, which can kill anyone near the front of the warrior even though the tank is blocking the damage. So the group must be far enough away from the gargoyle statue that is behind the main tank not to receive any damage. This will ensure that the warrior uses his shield throw mechanic and it will break the gargoyle statues. To avoid damage from the shield throw, sprint out of the mechanic AoE. If you attempt to dodge roll, most of the time the damage will still register and can easily kill a player. The second set of gargoyles to be destroyed is the pair that is far right of the room looking from the entrance side. Again, the body of the group will be between the gargoyles and the main tank will position themselves closest to the gargoyle to them. The main tank may have to overkite the warrior in order to get the correct angle so that the shield throw can destroy both gargoyles. During this transition, there will be 2 melee statues, destroyers, that will spawn. The off tank will taunt both destroyers and drag them on top of the warrior. Keep in mind that the off tank will have the kite near the warrior at this particular point, so if the warrior is in the middle of his cleave attack, the off tank can be clipped by the damage and possibly die without realizing it. At the same time, the destroyers will target random group members with a link ability which causes an AoE to form underneath the player's character. When fully formed, the AoE will explode that may cause enough damage to kill the group but can be mitigated by blocking. The destroyers also have a conal attack that must be blocked or else it will knock the player backwards. If this happens, it can cause the warrior's shield throw to be angled and miss the gargoyle statues. This conal attack must also be blocked to prevent group members from being knocked back out of positioning. The third set of gargoyles to be destroyed is the pair of statues that the group ran past to reach the second set of gargoyles, which should be in line together. Both DPS and the healers will move into the water between the gargoyles standing in the increased damage pad. If any destroyers are still up, the off tank will stack the targets on the warrior. If there are no targets, then the off tank will stack with the group. For the main tank, this set of gargoyles can be tricky when attempting to break the statues, because the statues are further apart than the previous pairs. It is possible to increase the chances of the shield throw breaking both statues by wedging the gargoyle in between the tank and the warrior, with the warrior being the furthest away from the group. After the third set of gargoyle statues, the main tank will position the warrior just as if they were doing regular VhrcHM. To reiterate, the warrior should be standing in the water between the center pad and the DPS damage pool. This will be the remainder of the fight till Shehai phase around 35%, and the warrior will also destroy the healing increase statue and damage increase statue. During this time, 2 destroyers, 2 flame mages, and hopefully at least 1 gargoyle will spawn, depending on the group's damage. The Off Tank's job will be to stack the targets on the warrior. The one obstacle that the Off Tank needs to avoid is to not run outside the group's range so far that causes the warrior to jump away from its position, which will greatly reduce the damage that is needed to be done. The destroyers are easy to stack because they are melee, but the flame mages will be a little tricky because they are ranged targets, and the Off Tank will have to overkite in order to stack the mages on the warrior. The Off Tank will need to slot crushing shot so they can interrupt the flame mages at range when they're in their flame mechanic. When the gargoyle spawns from their statue form, the Off Tank needs to taunt the gargoyle and place it near the center pad in the water, but not too close to the main tank nor near the group. The gargoyle has a wide range AoE ground pound that can almost instantly kill anyone within it. In most cases, the AoE will be right beside the main tank, but if the main tank happens to be within the AoE, they can just rotate to the side, keeping the warrior in the same position to avoid the extra damage. Once the ground pound is done, the main tank can rotate back on top of the center pad. All damage should be focused on the warrior, while the destroyers and flame mages can be killed within AoE damage. Whenever a gargoyle is spawned, the focus of the damage should be directed to the gargoyle to get it down quickly. Then once it is down, the focus of the damage should go back to the warrior. When getting closer to 35%, if there are any destroyers or flame mages that have spawned, then they should be ignored because they will despawn once Shehai phase has begun. At 35%, when Shehai begins, the warrior will sprint to the center of the pad in the middle of the room. He will switch from using a sword and shield to a two-handed weapon, and everyone will be knocked down with the exterior walls of the room exploding outwards. During this phase, the group will need to spread out around the center pad in a soft stack pattern, with the healer stand behind the group on the bottom corner of the steps in the water. The main tank will keep the warrior in the same position on the center pad, but with the warrior's back facing towards the entrance door of the room. At the same time, all remaining destroyers and flame mages will despawn and disappear, but any remaining gargoyle statues will spawn all at once. The Off Tank will need to taunt every gargoyle and drag them all towards the entrance door. The Off Tank will need to be at least far enough away that they will not receive any damage from the Shehai mechanic and continuously taunt the gargoyles, keeping them out of the group. When the warrior raises his sword, the mechanic Starfall will begin, which is an AoE to each individual that must be blocked to survive. If any of the group members are stacked on anyone else, then it will increase the damage taken, which can cause group members to die. The best advice that can be given to deal with the mechanic is to block during the Starfall mechanic, but also block cast abilities to keep damage up on the warrior. Also, attempt to avoid any unnecessary dodge rolling to keep enough stamina for blocking during the Starfall mechanic. Any DPS that are within melee range of the warrior must be aware of the warrior's sword cleave damage that can possibly one-shot anyone if they are not the tank. With the switch of his weapons, instead of a shield throw, the warrior will use a frontal lane attack similar to the shield throw. The warrior will thrust his sword into the ground, causing a wide lane of damage that must be avoided at all costs. Even during Shehai, group members can still be fossilized, which, as stated before, the same rules will still apply to the tanks and healers. The new lane attack can also break anyone that is fossilized, just like the shield throw. The remainder of the encounter will be rinsed and repeated till the warrior is killed. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this guide has helped with any unanswered questions or unknown maneuvers throughout the hard mode encounter. I attempted to cover as much as possible, but I may or may not have included every detail. As always, please feel free to ask questions and comment down below.